Most rocks that you find on the ground look like they belong there. They're rough and irregular, a little jagged and gritty. But occasionally, geologists find rocks that look a little out of place. Perfectly spherical, weirdly heavy, incongruously smooth. Or maybe so ornate and delicate that they look like they had to have been carved, like this one here. These rocks look so strange that they have accumulated more than their fair share of folk tales and conspiracy theories. But they also have something in common, aside from the supernatural explanations. Even though they're made of different stuff and look visually distinct from each other, the geological processes that form them are exactly the same. So here's how these impossible-looking rocks formed and what that can tell us about our planet and even some other ones. There's a few out-of-this-world rocks we wanted to talk about today, and we're going to start with Klerksdorp spheres. Miners in the Ottosdal region of South Africa, near the town of Klerksdorp, had been digging up these strange spherical objects for decades, and in the 1970s, people started to wonder what they really were. They ranged in size from just millimeters to up to 4 centimeters across, with a smooth surface and a metallic sheen, and in some cases, a series of grooves around their middle. Basically, they looked very much like mini cricket balls. But here's the thing. The rocks they were embedded in were more than 3 billion years old, which makes them a lot older than both cricket and the humans that invented it. Some people have even considered the possibility that these were artifacts left behind by ancient aliens. And while we know that these rocks aren't extraterrestrial, we've also found some bewildering rocks that are extraterrestrial because they are on Mars. In 2004, the Martian rover Opportunity touched down on the Meridiani Planum, and within its first weeks on the planet, it spotted something unexpected. Huge numbers of tiny metallic spheres were scattered all over the surface, each between 1.5 and 5 millimeters in diameter. Like the Klerksdorp spheres, they were smooth and metallic, and they seemed to shine with a bluish hue against the red Martian soil. These so-called Martian blueberries caused a storm when their pictures were released. Again, they seemed too different and too perfect to have a purely physical explanation. Some wondered if they had been created by modern or ancient Martian life forms. However, the story got a bit more complicated when we found out that sometimes they form on Earth too. In the deserts of Utah, metallic spheres can be found littering the surface near outcrops of red Jurassic Age sandstone. There are a lot of different sizes, from as small as a pea to as big as a grapefruit. The native Hopi people who first lived in this part of Utah referred to them as marbles, and I can see why. According to legend, their spirit ancestors returned to Earth at night to play marbles and then leave the balls to assure their descendants that they are happy. Those mysterious minerals are odd because they are perfectly round, but while these last ones might not be spherical, they are just as bizarre. I'm talking about fairy stones. These fascinating rocks come in all kinds of colors and sizes, from the smallest balls to boulders called devil marbles, and they can be found in sedimentary deposits all over the world. The Moroccan variety of fairy stones are usually a soft, chalky white. They're just the right size to fit in the palm of your hand, and they are built from smoothly overlapping lobes that give each one a unique shape. Honestly, they look like they would be more at home in an art gallery than in a geology collection. And just like when we look for shapes in the clouds, our pattern-matching brains are really good at finding little shapes in these. Like this one looks like a bug or like a kodama from Princess Mononoke. This one looks like a mushroom or like a sock, or like a weird tree. One Scottish legend describes how these rocks are actually gifts from fairies formed at night on tiny potter's wheels and left to bring good luck to the mortals who found them. So we've got fairy stones, we've got Hopi marbles, we've got Martian blueberries, and Klerksdorp spheres. All of them have been given supernatural or alien-based explanations for how they formed. But looking closer, the evidence that they are natural is pretty concrete, which is a pun you will get in just a second. For one, they're made of mineral combinations that do occur naturally, even if you wouldn't necessarily expect to find them where they are. The marbles, blueberries, and cricket balls are all made of iron minerals, and the fairy stones are composed of calcium carbonate. Despite their smooth outer surface, they don't show any tool marks or any indication of being worked, and inside, they either have very little to no structure or are made of simple concentric layers. And one clue that is really the smoking gun to these being natural objects, when they are found within rocks, which they frequently are, the layers of the surrounding rock continue through them. This means that despite how they look, they must have formed at the same time as the rock. And we call these rocks that formed within rocks when part of the sediment becomes mineralized differently to the rest, concretions. I told you it was a relevant pun. It's a pretty simple process, but one that gives rise to some of the oddest bits of geology on our planet or on any other. Concretions form almost exclusively in sedimentary rocks, which started out as layers of loose sediment that settled out from the air or water that put it there. But it takes a long time before the sediments are turned into rock. In the meantime, fluids can circulate through them, and it's these fluids that are the secret sauce for concretions. It starts with a tiny grain of something. It could be a scrap of organic matter, a shell, or something destined to become a fossil. Mineral-rich fluids that are hanging around within the sediments happen upon this grain and use it as a nucleation point to start precipitating a solid crystal matrix. It's just like when you're making rock candy. You use tiny grains of sugar as a starting point for the big sugar crystals to grow. Except for this real rock candy, the growth is happening inside the sediment itself. The mineral matrix grows from the inside out, trapping sedimentary grains and layers. If nothing gets in its way, this omnidirectional growth will create a sphere of solid crystal. The time it takes can vary quite a lot, but it might be just months or years. Over a much longer period of time, the rest of the sediment then turns into rock around the concretion through normal rock-forming processes of squeezing and drying and heating. But because of their early and uniform mineralization, concretions are often harder than the surrounding sedimentary rock, meaning that they survive when the rest of the rock erodes away, leaving them on the surface to confuse passing humans. Now, since the recipe for a concretion only calls for a fluid saturated with mineral ions and something to kick off the crystallization, these solid mineral lumps are actually surprisingly common in the geological record. So, far from raising questions about mysterious objects, concretions actually offer an opportunity to learn more about the conditions of their formation. The Klerksdorp spheres were created inside layers of volcanic sediments. 3 billion years ago, eruptions piled up ash over the landscape, and depressions in these ash layers filled with water, creating an acidic lake system. These lakes were inhabited by primitive microbes which would die, sink to the bottom of the lake, and get mixed with the ash. As the specks of organic matter began to decay, they changed the chemistry of the water surrounding them, causing iron sulfide, also known as pyrite, to start to precipitate. If allowed to grow freely, pyrite forms cubic crystals, but this pyrite was growing inside the ash, around the organic matter, and so it made microcrystalline spherical concretions. And the grooves on the surface of some of the solid balls are remnants of the original ash layers that contained them. So no, these rocks were not the work of ancient aliens, but they do owe their existence to some of the earliest life on Earth. Scientists think that a similar process helped to create the Martian blueberries and their earthly counterparts too. This hypothesis says that in the deep past, the Martian soil was covered by acidic water that soaked through layers of sediment, and a change in groundwater chemistry, possibly caused by interactions with the atmosphere, triggered the growth of iron oxide minerals around sediment grains. Both the Opportunity and Perseverance rovers have found the spheres embedded in the rocks that formed them. As a result, these blueberries represent a pretty crucial piece of evidence to suggest that the red planet's dry, dusty surface was once a very different, far wetter place. Likewise, here on Earth, the Hopi marbles may have helped scientists piece together Martian history from hundreds of millions of kilometers away. These terrestrial analogs may have helped us understand the extraterrestrial concretions formation far better than we would by robotically poking at them from a very great distance. Finally, we have the fairy stones, specifically fairy stones found in Morocco. They look different from metallic spherical concretions, but they're formed in a very similar way, just starting with different minerals. These are carbonate concretions, and they likely formed early on in the process of sedimentation. And while they may not be evidence of fairies, in Morocco, they could hold evidence of ancient life. Concretions usually need a nucleus to form around, like how oysters form pearls around a small irritant. One study into concretions from South southwestern Morocco specifically wanted to look at how quickly that process happened, and if the nucleus that set off the concretion making could tell us about the paleo environment at the time. The layers they were most interested in formed during the Upper Cretaceous, which is a time when lots of cool stuff was happening with living organisms. As it turns out, the concretions themselves are pretty great at preserving some of those fossils. For instance, the researchers found that ammonite fossils were more abundant inside concretions than outside them. They also found that these concretions held microscopic fossils like diatoms and planktonic foraminifera, all things that would have been common in the shallow ocean waters that covered the area at that time. They even found that some formed around ancient fecal matter. The existence of concretions is essentially evidence that the area was teeming with life back in the day. If it wasn't, there wouldn't have been enough organic carbon around to form them in the first place. So even if these Moroccan concretions can't prove the existence of fairies, they do help us understand the living things that lived here at the time. You know, the things that actually existed. Sorry, fairies. I don't mean to be mean. So even though people all over the world have speculated about their mystical origins, the evidence shows us that these concretions are all natural. And SciShow Rocksbox subscribers will receive their own geological work of art in the form of a fairy stone from Morocco. Signs of fossil life not included, though if you scrape it onto a microscope slide, I'm not saying that you won't find anything. Our Rocksbox subscriptions have been incredibly popular, and lucky for you, we have some spots open. Every box comes with an info card to teach you about your new specimen. Head over to complexly.store/rocks to learn more and maybe sign up. Or if you prefer to buy your rocks a la carte, we do have some of our favorite minerals from past months available for individual sale as well, along with some cool accessories and merch. So check it all out at complexly.store/rocks. Thank you for watching.